Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is on a tour around Europe, sealing deals on mutual defense cooperation. And to talk about the Ukrainian diplomatic offensive, we're joined by Olena Halushka, co-founder of the International Center for Ukrainian Victory. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, how would you sum up the presidential trip to Norway? What will Kyiv get in return for its drone technology? Because it's usually drone technology that Kyiv has to offer.
I think that our cooperation and alliance with Norway is incredibly important because Norway is one of the biggest donors for Ukraine. They have their own technology in the air defenses that are badly needed for Ukraine because, as I speak to you right now, cruise missiles are fired at Ukraine, and I will go to shelter immediately after this conversation. And I think that our cooperation with Norway have to be mutually beneficial. And it has to evolve into the development of the joint production and joint cooperation with a focus on drone technologies, anti-drone and anti-Shahed solutions. We see that in the Middle East, there is also big appetite for having those technologies, but also, of course, air defense systems and ammunition.
So defense systems, you're talking about something that can replace the American Patriots, right?
Well, unfortunately, we do not have the technology at this point that can efficiently shoot down ballistic missiles. But Norway has at least anti-cruise defense like NASAMS that proved to be really efficient. But I think that Europe has to be very serious in the midterm perspective to replace Patriot technology because the US has monopoly at this point. And again, the war in the Middle East proved that when one theater of the war erupts, there is a big shortage in this stockpiles for other theaters. So Europe cannot afford full dependence on these solutions on America.
So it seems. Now, Ukraine was also supposed to get some F-16s from Norway. Where are they?
Unfortunately, there is big delay in this supplies, and not only from Norway. Just recently, we read that similarly, Belgian F-16s are delayed in coming to Ukraine. That's pretty bad news because in Ukraine, F-16s are part of the combined and complex air defense systems, and F-16s proved very efficient against calibers and cruise missiles. And we need them badly because the ones that we are using are already so over-intensified that it's a big challenge of how to maintain and repair them. Norwegian government said that they will send us one out of 6, which of course is peanuts for Ukraine. So I hope that they will speed up. We heard that they basically stuck in the maintenance center in Belgium. So we hope that they can speed up the Belgian counterparts in order to have those jets repaired and upgraded much faster, because it's the lives of Ukrainians that is on the stake.
Right. Today, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in Italy, continuing his European tour. Will this trip be also about drones or maybe something else?
I think that the agenda that President Zelenskyy has right now to most of the European partners are pretty similar. Because Ukrainian drone technologies is our solution that we can offer our partners. And it's battle tested, combat hardened. And this is something which proved efficient in battle in Ukraine. And not only like drone technologies like FPV drones, but also anti-Shahed solutions, which is a big issue as well. But it's about mutual beneficial cooperation. And Italy also has important weapons that are necessary for Ukraine. That's long-range missiles, that's air defense system, SMPT, that is also being tested as anti-ballistic solution at this moment. So it's definitely about, and they have a strong industry actually in Italy. So it's also, I think, about the mutually beneficial steps.
And how do you regard this visit in the context of the recent spat between Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and the US President Donald Trump?
As we have heard, Giorgia Meloni has been friendly towards President Trump and vice versa. And honestly, for me, it was a big surprise that she has openly gone to defend the Pope. But I mean, as Vatican and Italy have a strong ties and geography, I mean, it was an absolutely natural step for her to do. It's the question to watch how the policy of the American president towards Italy will evolve. But we know that he is a pretty emotional politician. Today he tweets something very angry against a European politician, and tomorrow he may change his mind. So I do not think that this will have a huge implications on the unfortunately already deteriorating relationship between the US and Europe. But, all of those debates and discussions and tweeting is something President Trump likes very much.
As you mentioned, these deteriorating relations between the US and Europe, could Ukraine become sort of Europe's biggest asset in terms of mutual defense, as the American interest in European affairs seems to be waning?
I absolutely and fully agree with you. This is something that we've been communicating to Europeans since early days of the full-scale war, that do not consider Ukraine to be a burden to Europe's security, because Ukraine is actually an asset to the security, because we have the largest combat hardened army in Europe. We have a modern battle-tested technology, and unfortunately Russian imperialism and imperialistic ambitions go way beyond Ukraine. I mean, if you watch their propaganda television, they very clearly speak about Baltic states, about Poland and other countries, and Ukraine's resistance and us stopping Russian aggression and Russian military from moving westwards, I think at this point is indeed the largest asset, a security asset that Europe has. And it is, as I've said already, will be a mutually beneficial alliance, because Europe has also technology, Europe has funding, and Ukraine has the strongest military in Europe. And I think that that's the recipe for a pretty solid relationship.
I agree with you. Now, I'd like to ask you about the meeting, the NATO Contact Group in the Ramstein format. What do you expect from this particular meeting taking place today?
Well, I think that the priority will remain, as we've discussed with you, the development and the sharing of the drone technology, opening of the lines of production of Ukrainian drones in joint ventures in the European countries, to ensure that production can be secured from the Russian Shahed drones and missiles. abroad in our partner states. I'm sure that they will speak about air defenses because that's very pressing need. They will definitely speak about Pearl program and how to ensure that Europe has sufficient funding to keep procuring PAC-3 missiles to the Patriots, because on one hand we realize that Europe needs to seek for alternatives, but that's not the solution in the short to mid-range, and it will take much more time. So in the short run, we definitely need to make sure that American missiles keep coming to Ukraine. They will definitely speak about ammunition and ensuring that Ukrainian military has sufficient ammunition for artillery to keep stopping the Russian advances and offensive attempts of offensives on the front lines. I just read today the news that with the spring coming and with the weather getting warmer, the Russians intensified the attempts to storm and assault the positions, in the Donetsk region and in the south of Ukraine. So all of those things, of course, will be discussed. But let's see if there are any breakthroughs, because even though those Ramstein meetings are super important for the coordination, but we really lack some sort of victory commitments, and not only discussing for Ukraine how to ensure our survival, but how to make sure that Ukraine has more weapons in order to be able to turn the table, to change the dynamics of the battle and the war.
Olena Halushka, co-founder of the International Center for Ukrainian Victory, was our guest this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more interviews here on TVP World.